I'm gonna show you how I turned this ordinary garage into my full-blown DIY workshop studio. Alright, so I had 3 major goals with this project. Number 1 was to just turn this into a regular functional garage where I could store all of our normal garagey type stuff that we used to have in the shed or in the attic at the old house. Number 2 was to also accommodate 10 years worth of props and wardrobe that came from Homemade Movies, DIY Prop Shop, DIY Costume Squad, and have that all be very super organized. And number 3 was to have this be an actual functional DIY workshop / studio where I could shoot cool videos and have it be really functional, but have it look really cool too. So aside from the stuff that was in my attic, I still had a utility closet in Pasadena filled with all of this leftover but savable stuff from all these different shows. So I took a handful of trips bringing all that stuff to the new house. At first, once we had everything in the garage, it looked totally nuts. It was just kind of wall-to-wall bins and all of our stuff, and it looked pretty bad. But I knew the first step was getting this stuff all up on racks. So I always use these wire racks because they're really tall, and I know that I can fit 3 bins across on these, so I can fit 18 bins on each one. And as long as you get the ones with casters, they're really easy to move around. Side note, unlike the directions which tell you to assemble these upright, if you do them on the side and just slide the shelves in one at a time on the side, it's way easier to assemble one of these by yourself. Alright, so now at least I've got everything nice and organized and in these bins and on the racks, but it was still way too much stuff. I haven't really gone through this in a long time, and I knew I didn't need to actually keep all of this stuff, so I set out on the giant task of actually sorting through all of it and organizing it down even more. Keep in mind, this is not all cool finished costumes. Sometimes it's just literally a bin full of vests, a bin full of pants, shirts, long sleeves, gloves. These are things that were helpful when we were putting together lots of shows every week, but some of it just straight up went in the trash. Some of it was good for recycling, and I took a couple Jeep loads to the thrift store. By the way, whenever I want to open the garage and don't want the puppies to get out, I have this really nice wooden doggy gate that's got vertical slats so they can't climb up and over. Alright, so next it was time to shuffle everything around and move all the stuff off to one side. With the wheels, it's really easy to do that. And I wanted to make sure all the bins were actually accessible too, so I kind of set it up like a little library where you could go down the aisles looking for what you need. So as I was arranging these shelves, I realized I could utilize the space in the attic right above the garage. First thing was to just scrape off this faded blackout paint on the front window so I could see what I was doing, which was hashtag oddly satisfying using this window scraper. I immediately realized that you could now see these 2x4s from the front of the house, so I consulted the old fabric bin and found some nice velvety black fabric that I could hang up there. Now I can lift it up when I need light and just keep it closed the rest of the time. I put down some more pieces of board on the floor and nailed some things down so I wouldn't fall through, and got this space nice and ready for some extra storage. So let's just take a moment to appreciate the amazing archive of stuff here, tucked away nicely on one side of the garage. And this is not only the production fun stuff, but this is just storage for our personal garage stuff too. And a whole section just for my production gear. I've got all these stands, I've got cameras, different bags and cases full of production gadgets, and now finally plenty of room for our bikes, and a whole other section on the other side of the garage that just has more of our shed type stuff, or gardening type stuff that we might use more regularly. I also love just finding the perfect place to get something up and out of the way like these lawn chairs. Hey, don't forget that I've got links to all the products I'm featuring in the video description and in my Amazon storefront. Alright, so moving on to the workbench side of things, this is a nice blank canvas. I just freshened up some of the white paint around first. I actually found this sweet LED work light up above these cabinets, so I just installed it underneath. And to attach the power cord nice and neat, I just used these little stick-on clips like I usually do. I have so many of them, I feel like they'll last forever. They're so handy. Alright, ready to set it up, but one last thing, I decided to paint this pegboard black. I just used some leftover black paint I had. As always, I started by doing the edges first by hand, and then I just did the rest of it with a small paint roller. Alright, so this light socket was in the way of the garage door when it opens, so I just relocated it over here, which was a better spot for light anyway. So then it was time to decorate. I used a nice looking old piece of wood to make this shelf, and I got this variety pack of hardware specifically for the pegboard, so that way I could hang the tools and things all nice and neat. I also put down this long power strip so I have way more places to plug in. I busted out some of the good props and helmets and things to use in the background for more decoration. And then I decided to update the cabinet hardware because these handles were kind of old and cheap and one was missing. So I used the same type of matte black handles that I used throughout the rest of the house. Alright, so I brought in my workbench that I used to have on the back patio. I just sanded and refinished the top, and I got a new self-healing mat. The old one was pretty beat up and it was too big for this anyway. Even though this already has locking casters, I got these great little rubber stoppers where you can set the wheels on, then it really holds it into place. I like to mark the positions of everything with tape on the ground. That way when I move things out and then back into position, I know exactly where they need to go. This helps a lot when I'm doing the setup for a new video shoot. I do this for my tripods and stands too, which is helpful for not only the initial setup, but anytime I have various camera positions. I've got a handful of lights set up all around. I love these little LED panels, they're super lightweight and versatile. I have this one attached here with the Cardellini clamp, which is also really versatile and I just use for everything. I love these. I put a second light up here sort of in the attic doorway just for another angle. I can turn them all on at once with a switch. And I also like to use these party lights. This just adds a little splash of color across the props. And I have one hidden behind here too to just add this whole splash of teal across the backdrop. And I've got another light way on the other side behind me for a nice backlight. So this is pretty much the main video setup. I've got this wide shot here with a monitor facing myself. For a lot of the inserts, I've got a camera on a GorillaPod so I can get really good close-ups. I've got another camera on a tripod I can move around for various angles. So now with this really easy to set up whenever I want, I'll be able to do more DIY videos. You might have seen my recent Mandalorian costume video that I shot in here. If you haven't, go check that one out. Wireless lav mics can be really expensive, so this is a cheap option I've been using for a long time. It's from Audio-Technica and it's wired, but it has a really long thin cable and it just plugs right into the main camera. So whenever I want to record audio on the main camera or record on this wide shot, I just use this little remote that starts recording on my main wide shot here. I'm really happy with the final setup. I've never had a garage of my own before. As you know, we used to just do all this stuff inside the house, so it's nice to have a place where I can just set up and make a mess. Oh, and there's one last thing I decided to do in here. Now that I've got the room, I wanted a way to lift up the roof of my Jeep so I could just drive on out and enjoy the coastal weather. So I installed a custom setup for about $20, but I'm gonna do a whole separate video just about this. All right, thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about any of this stuff, and I'll see you next time.